Welcome to the second day of Imbibe Live and to the Industry Matters stage. We're going to be talking about all things sustainability. I'm Robyn Black, former editor of Imbibe magazine, imbibe.com, now of Fleet Street Communications. I wasn't actually supposed to be here today. Richard Siddles was meant to be chairing this panel, but he's not very well. Not COVID, I think he's done his back in. So if I sound slightly underprepared, I am. But Richard sent over a lovely briefing note and lots of questions, so I'm sure it's still going to be a super panel. This is being recorded, so if anyone misses anything or wants to watch it back or wants to recommend it to someone else, it'll be available on the Imbibe Live website after the show. So without further ado, I'm going to get my panel to introduce themselves. If you want to tell us a little bit about the business you're involved in and why you're on this panel, that'd be great. So you want to start far end?
So, hi everyone, nice to see everyone in person. My name's Will Browning and I head up our out-of-home and hospitality partnerships team at Fairtrade Foundation. So I'm here today, I guess, to sort of give a bit of an insight into our view on sustainability from the sort of supply chain side and I guess how your decisions and what you stock in your store can kind of feed into that.
Hi, I'm Mel Marriott. I'm the founder and managing director of a group of bars go under the name of Darwin and Wallace, and they're in sort of central, south, east, all over London. I founded the business 9 years ago, and at the centre of it was this desire to try and operate a commercially successful but at the same time sustainable business. So I guess I'm here representing the operators amongst us, and that's it.
Hi guys, my name's Louisa. I'm from the Sustainable Restaurant Association. We run the world's largest sustainability program for hospitality, which is called Food Made Good. And we currently work with about 12,000 businesses, including Darwin and Wallace. And we work with these businesses to define sustainability, assess sustainability. So we're known for our Food Made Good rating, 1, 2, 3-star rating that you see in the window of many restaurants. We work with these restaurants to improve their sustainability, and then we celebrate what they're doing well.
And I'm Andy. I work for Too Good To Go, specifically in the hospitality sector. So we're an app which you can download, and also a social impact company. We exist because 40% of the food that's produced in the world ends up wasted, which is pretty staggering. So my job is to redistribute any food and drink that's surplus to local users in the community who care about eating, consuming, and drinking in the right way. So we're here to try and reduce food and drink waste, and also, in the same time, win back some sunken costs for hospitality businesses that are losing about $8,000 a year for no reason.
Brilliant. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today. I will be opening up for questions, audience questions at the end, so if you've got any, keep them in mind, and we'll try and keep 5 minutes back at the end. But let's start with a big first question then. What does sustainability look like, or need to look like, for an on-trade business today, this day and age? Maybe Louisa, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So, as I said, we define sustainability. We built a framework about 10 years ago. We have 3 pillars, so sourcing, society, and the environment. And we take a very holistic approach to sustainability. Within those kind of 3 pillars, there's 10 areas, including everything from looking at your supply chain, sourcing things locally and seasonally, and then within society, it's all about your impact on your employers, your employees, your diners and customers, and the wider community. And then we have the kind of classic environmental sustainability, which is all about recycling, minimizing food waste, making sure you're sourcing renewable energy, and being efficient in your operations. So in an ideal world, it's about tackling all those different areas, but I'm sure we'll go into where to begin.
Well, Mel, it sounds like a good time to bring you in. Where did you begin?
So first, the best thing I think that I did when I had this ambition to have a sustainably run business, and across all the tenets that we just heard about. So the smartest thing I did was partner up with the SRA and utilise them as a resource, because it's actually brilliant to contact experts who are super willing and want to share with you how you can behave sustainably, how you can, and we are audited annually to achieve our rating 1, 2, or 3 stars, and we're really proud to hold those 3 stars. And actually, the Sustainable Restaurant Association, but my business is very much a bar business as well. But we also serve a lot of food, and I think it's important to see how it's, the SRA's reach has grown, including wet-led businesses like mine. So I think the resource of the SRA, and then that taking ownership and being audited by an external body across all of those areas of the business really help you understand where you're doing well, where you can improve and move forward.
Did you look at defining what sustainability meant for you as a starting step?
I wish I was that organised. Also, I think it came from a sense. For me, I've worked in this industry for a really, really long time, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get funding and start my own business. So I knew that there were certain things, and for me it was really basic stuff around food sourcing, drink sourcing, waste recycling, all of those fairly basic things. And I think it's fair to say over the last 9 years the scope and the ambition of our business has grown, but the principles are embedded. And so certainly there wasn't a big corporate workshop going, what does sustainability mean to us? It was more me going alongside my amazing exec chef Simon Duff, who's worked with me from the get-go, and Jessica Kloss, who's now the brand manager. But the three of us started the business, and we all had this desire and ambition, and we actually didn't talk about it externally at all, really. We just talked about it amongst ourselves, and then went to work with the SRA and people that we've met along the way as well, and different producers, and it was all about finding like-minded people to do business with and supply us. So it's more people brilliantly are talking about sustainability now, so it's good.
And of course, customers are talking about sustainability now as well. What do consumers want from a sustainable on-trade business? Will, is that something you can help with?
Yeah, so I think, certainly before the pandemic, we saw a report by UK Hospitality that showed actually a number of different areas of sustainability are important to on-trade outlets, including ethical sourcing. So ethical sourcing of food and drink actually came out on top. But what's really encouraging is that actually we're still seeing that, or still seeing that across the trade, not just the on-trade, but across consumers in general, even now, despite the year that we've had. So one of the things that we look at is a report called the Ethical Markets Report. And actually that's shown across things like reduced plastic or meat-free, dairy-free. Actually, consumers that are wanting to switch to that, the number of consumers is still rising now despite the year that we've had. So what that means for Fairtrade, for example, we've actually seen sales of Fairtrade products increase by just over 13.5% in the last year, which is actually faster than the kind of total. If you look in retail, total grocery. So it's really encouraging for us that we're still seeing consumers want to change and spend more ethically, and are pledging to increase the amount of fair trade or other sustainability kind of areas that they're going to focus on in the next year, despite knowing what we've all been through in the last year. So it feels optimistic, and I think that's why it's really important, as on-trade operators, to kind of think, well, what does that look like in my context? Now we're back open. How do we open up in a way that is meeting that demand that we're seeing shine through in the last year?
So if you're an on-trade business and you're looking to sort of fulfill that demand, what would be the sort of essential first steps? Louisa, that might be one for you.
I guess it's that kind of, you can't monitor what you haven't measured. So going back to doing some kind of assessment allows you to understand where you're really excelling and where you might be struggling a little bit, and that's where we can help. But I think going back to what you were saying there, Mel, every operator understands sustainability differently and will be excelling in certain areas because it aligns more with their brand and their interests and their ethos and whatever, their previous experience. And I think choosing the things that you feel most confident and comfortable talking about, bars, probably about the booze and the drinks and so identifying those things that you and your team feel resonate most with you in terms of sustainability, and talking about the things that you are doing, and then obviously acknowledging that there's still lots of other things that can be on that journey, and talking about the fact that you are also improving in other areas, but these are the things that you're already really doing very well.
what about other sectors? Are there things we can learn from other industry sectors? Will, bring you in finally.
Andy, but yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. So obviously Too Good To Go is fairly well known for its work with supermarkets, and we do tend to sort of work together as a group. And the food waste in supermarkets is pretty staggering, but they are doing something about it very proactively. In France, it's the law, they have to, but in the UK it's not yet, and yet we're still doing and seeing impacts from them. So in terms of how hospitality can learn from that, I think it's about finding, and sort of like what you were saying, Louisa, the most impactful thing that you could do, and then really going for that. Or if there isn't something that stands out, trying to get involved in things until it becomes more relevant to you. So what they do well is find what is in their interest, but also in the sustainability credentials, and go from there. So if consumers are expecting you to be doing something about sustainability, which we know they are, what you have to understand is that sustainability originally was there to mean financially sustainable and sustainable for your business. The offer has to be just as good for the consumer as it is for the non-sustainable option. But likewise, it has to be something that makes sense for your business. So I think finding that niche and going with it is what we can learn from other sectors, really.
And what about downfalls? Are there any pitfalls, or, I mean, Mel, are there any mistakes you made on the way that you wish you'd known about?
I'm sure I've made millions. I think, again, I go back to this, from the get-go, it was about working out, we exist to be a commercial business and to, employ people, grow the business, make money, and you need to try and find a balance about, again, what's achievable and how you can embed it in the team and get everyone to come along with you. Because it's all well and good. There's no point me just, deciding that I want to operate the business in a certain way. It needs everybody who's involved in the business to understand why we're doing it and buy into it and want to do it. And that's a real positive. So I think trying to break down, I think a mistake would be to worry that you need to tackle everything all in one go to define yourself as behaving and operating sustainably, and you just don't. Even if you start with one thing and just completely smash it, then that's a massive part together. A couple of years ago now, when I really was one of the only bar groups involved in the SRA, and I sat with the senior founders and I said, really you need more bar groups involved, because we're a huge business, and it would be really great. You should actually get more bars involved, and it's not just about not having plastic straws in drinks and all the rest of it, but it's actually goes down to, well, do you even need to specify a garnish in a drink? Because if you don't need to specify a garnish in a drink, well, it doesn't add. What's the point? And if you think about all of the on-trade operators deciding not to specify lime or lemon or whatever, then the impact is massive. So all of us can contribute, but just by looking at processes that we've traditionally followed. Like I said, I've been in this business for like 30 odd years, and back in the day, it would be, cocktails gone, as much as you could get in the glass to make it look more interesting, but actually it just really boils down to the liquid that you're pouring and the combination and the skill involved in it and that effort, rather than other superfluous bits and bobs.
And what about, greenwashing, something we used to hear a lot about. Are consumers wary of greenwashing, or is it something we don't think about anymore? Anyone want to go?
I don't know if I can add in something here, but I think consumers are really, in fact, I'd say they're increasingly aware of when something is a sustainable sort of statement and when something actually has an impact. Our recent kind of research shows that I think it's 79% of consumers see value in sort of an independent party kind of being involved in sustainability issues, whether that's a certifier or something like that. And I think, the two elements of that is, one, for kind of we touched on here, like, you're not going to be an expert in everything, but actually bringing and partnering with an organisation that might be able to help you can perhaps help you kind of have a broader impact than you might be able to on your own. But the second way is, it's a really great way to communicate to customers and showing them something that they trust, something they recognise is sustainable and is truly sustainable and having an impact, as opposed to kind of just sort of saying they're doing something and perhaps greenwashing or paying lip service. So that's something I think we found with partners in other sectors has been really important, because of the trust and the recognition we have at Fairtrade. People, although they might not understand the ins and outs of it, understand that actually that is a sustainable thing and that is having a good impact. So I think there's a value of partnering to kind of help get around that and help make sure that you are delivering an impact and not just sort of saying you are.
If I could just add on to that briefly, I think it's right to call people out who are greenwashing so that the message is clear throughout it. But I do think we have to be quite careful of criticising for the sake of it sometimes, where a lot of our users come to use Too Good To Go because it's good value for money. They might not care about the environment. However, by getting involved, they're still having a positive impact and they might come to learn about it. So I think if we can kind of all act as consultants for anyone who shows an interest in it, even if it's for the wrong reasons, I think eventually that will still get to the point we need to get to. So perhaps a little bit different, but I think it's something that is in danger of getting a bit cliquey without too much warning.
As a partner then, is buy-in from the on-trade in particular difficult, or is it getting easier? I mean, industry-wise, how do we stack up against others in terms of partnering with organisations like yours?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what the difficulty is that it's less obvious, I think, for hospitality. With supermarkets, it's a very transactional relationship and it's quite easy, whereas pubs have always been a community thing. They've always responded to what the community needs and what the community wants. And the aim of a pub, in my opinion, is to sort of be a central hub of a community. It's just great now that the community wants something more sustainable. So I think the buy-in will become more obvious, and it's just about thinking creatively and changing a mindset as to how you can play a role. So for example, with Too Good To Go, we've always been a food waste app, but it became very obvious that beer and drinks are made in the same way. Beer is food. The impacts of the electricity that's used to make beer is just as damaging as perhaps the food industry. So we now use a lot of partners who, instead of line cleaning where they pour the beer into a bucket, they'll pour it into cartons which go to our users. So it's that little change in mindset of the accepted waste that comes from line cleaning, or after 4 days this cask has to go. That little change in mindset is what's responding to community needs, but also playing a role in sustainability that maybe hospitality didn't think about before.
Can anyone else on the panel think of those small things that when you mention to operators make them really sit up and think, oh, actually that's a simple change I can make?
I mean, we had a kind of prep call before this, and we just sort of started talking about food waste and particularly citrus for ages. And
lemons.
Most people here know that lemons, limes, oranges we call them the meat of the bar world. We use too many of them. We waste pretty much all the peel, if not the juice as well. And they're often sourced from the other side of the world, and they're often really good quality. And so I would say the kind of main thing, my suggestion would be look at how much citrus you're using. And when we talk about food, we talk about spoilage, prep and plate. When we talk about reducing your food waste, but with a drink, it's spoilage. So are those citruses going off? Are they going moldy? How much is being wasted in the prep stage? Are you chopping too many? And then what's being left in the glass? And do that for a week. Tip them into the different categories and see where your food waste, your citrus waste is coming from. But I'm sure Will can talk more about, if you do realise that you do want to use citrus, then source it properly and not from the complete other side of the world, and you have absolutely no idea where it comes from.
Nice lead on there. I think that was the other thing that came out in the call. There are certain things that you're going to be sourcing in your outlet that you do, like you might need citrus for certain things, or even things like coffee, or if you have chocolate. That's stuff that is going to come from the other side of the world. Unfortunately, we don't grow coffee in the UK. And I think the conversation we're having is just being a bit more conscious around, actually, if you have to source those things, trying to source it in a way that is a little bit more responsible. So, Fairtrade, for example, all the producers have environmental standards that they have to adhere by. So that'll be water conservation, carbon reduction, ways to improve, and not only improve, but actually because you're paying a slight premium, you're helping them to invest in that. You're helping them to invest in that improvement of sustainable production. So, we were saying that being conscious of what you're bringing in, but if you are bringing in things that, unfortunately can't be grown on your doorstep, it's just being a bit more discerning around where that's come from and what's the most sustainable way you could buy that.
And what about bringing your team along with you, staff along with you, Mel? Is that hard to get people to really stick? I've worked in bars, you've done a double shift and someone's asking you to count lemon slices. You're like putting it in the bin a bit, aren't you?
I think, the bar teams in my bars, they're all, they're skilled individuals and they're passionate about what they do. And so when we started this program, first of all, as you say, the citrus we source is wonky. So it's wonky veg again. So it's the stuff that gets cast aside by supermarkets and things. And then we've just developed this process now where we try and desiccate our garnishes. So it's actually it really intensifies flavours and it gives them a shelf life. So things last for 3 or 4 days once they've been sliced up and desiccated, and they really add a nice flavour to a drink. So in that regard, we make all of our lemon syrup on site again with the wonky veggies, and I think, they just enjoy it. We're not buying in sugary substitutes to make. We're actually making something really wonderful, and I think that, again, I think for me, starting with one bar, growing it to 8, 9 over the last 9 years has meant that it's just become our sort of way of life in our business. And I think it could be harder for a business that wants to kind of steer itself in a new direction that's already existing. But again, you just break it down into small achievable steps. And that's the way, in my view, that you do it, and partner with people who are really animated and encouraging and want to help you, because it's not a test. You're not trying, you're not, going to get great, you're basically trying to do a really good thing. So everyone's trying to help you along the way. And I think the teams feel happy about that as well. We're not, it's all very positive, bit of a kind of virtuous circle without sounding too weird.
And what about, obviously we all need to do this, not just because it's the right thing, because it's the right thing to do, but are there other advantages? With Fairtrade Foundation has done well at putting a premium on Fairtrade. Is that something that can be done around sustainability as a whole, to get customers willing to pay more, essentially?
Yeah, so I think certainly the research that we've shown is that customers are willing to pay a higher price for something that they are confident it is sourced sustainably. I think it's that confidence piece is key. It needs to be something they recognise. It needs to be something they're happy to do. I think it's something that a lot of our partners in other sectors use, so they will potentially have a more premium option that is sustainable. And I think the key thing around it is choice. So we were talking just before, actually, how although we love everything to be sustainable, actually, we know that not everyone is going to pay a premium for sustainability, but the important thing is there is a portion of your customer base that will, and they will be interested in it. So it's important to have that option, if you can, of having something that is a slightly more premium, but is actually paying a fairer price, doing something in a more environmentally friendly way, whatever that would be. I think that choice thing is kind of probably critical to that.
And Louisa, as part of the SRA, is that something you work on or look at or have found with the businesses you work with?
Yeah, definitely. But, a lot of the threads of what we're saying is still, for all of us, it's about getting more senior people in your business to buy into the fact that sustainability does sometimes cost a little bit more money. But the citrus example there, yes, sourcing fair trade might cost you a little bit more than sourcing from mysterious supply chain from who knows where, but it goes back to, again, reduction. And most things with sustainability are about efficiency. And with this example here, okay, if you're putting a wedge of citrus in 50% of your drinks, well, don't do that, and then source proper citrus for the ones that you are. So we know that, yes, there are customers that are out there willing and ready to spend a little bit more money, but also the majority of businesses still have that internal dialogue of trying to prove to people internally that they can afford it. And again, it goes back to that cost savings, efficiency, because sustainability is often about simplifying. Yeah,
all I was going to add to that is as well is that the gap between buying something more sustainable or fair trade or just mainstream is actually closed a lot. So we're not talking about an extra £1 per lemon or anything ludicrous. And obviously, I'm in business to be in business and be commercial, and so I can hand on heart tell you that I can still operate at really commercially sound margins, in fact industry leading margins, and still operate in the way that I do. So I think it's again 9 years ago there probably was a bit of a bigger gap between that price decision, and that gap is thankfully closing.
Brilliant. Well, coming to the end, so I'm going to open it up. Are there any audience questions anywhere? One over here. Someone's going to take your mic. Wipe it down.
Thank you. Hi there, thank you for that. So you've mentioned provenance relating to food. Obviously this is very much a drinks event. If I was to go up to the bar, how on earth do I know where the ingredients have come from for the drink that I am going to order, and how would I make a decision?
is a good question. Anyone willing to take it? Yeah. Or you don't need it?
Great question. It's something we spoke about when we met before, actually, because it's that whole, what's the role of the consumer and what's the role of the business? So, as Will said, in an ideal world, every product there would be sustainable. So the choice is, what's the best flavor out of all these most sustainable options? And I don't really know myself how much we should be expecting people to do research into the drinks they buy. It should, when you're going to a pub, you want to be going for enjoyment, I think. So with drinks, I think it's going to have to be led by businesses who want to do it. And even, like I said before, even if they're doing it for branding reasons or business reasons, if they've got the right mindset to it, then I think that will start resonating on a marketing purpose, which will make it easier for the consumer to choose that way. And as Louisa was saying, there are going to be some people who do the effort and the research. So then you've got a nice balance between people going in and deliberately choosing more sustainable beers, which will make the pub want to buy more sustainable beers because they're going to sell more. So it's a bit of a circular economy, and I don't think I'm the right person to say whose role it is more, consumer or business. But I know that the biggest change is going to happen when the businesses choose to buy sustainable only, and that will naturally lead on to consumers. So it's kind of a half a dozen of one and six of the other. But I think if we can rely on some people to do the right thing and actively research and choose it, and then the businesses to remove that choice in the same way that we kind of remove choice from people who buy through our app, then we're going to have a system which just naturally deselects the less sustainable options. And maybe that's optimistic of me, but that's what I hope. Anyone else?
Just to quickly add to that, I mean, completely to echo that, you won't know the provenance of every ingredient, and unfortunately a lot of the suppliers also won't. But I think going back to that, like, what does the role of the bar team play as well? How can we put more reliance on alcohol brands and suppliers to answer those questions for us and come in and train up bar staff on the credentials of their brands? Because then it allows bartenders to feel more confident in celebrating, talking about the credentials, and it allows operators to make decisions on what brands they want to stock based on, well, how much does this brand actually know about the impact of its product. So there's a real opportunity for suppliers to get in there with their operators and train up the front of house team, the bars, to eloquently talk about the sustainability credentials, the provenance of those products, to then convey it back to customers, diners, anyone that is interested.
So Mel, if I was coming to sell you a new drink, I mean, what due diligence do you do as a sustainable operator? What questions do you ask?
Well, we absolutely look at the provenance, the ingredients used. So recently, and again, you know, it's a bar business, but the importance we attach to having a really great range of soft drinks is becoming more and more important to recognise. You know, can be good, different choices people are making about when and where they drink alcohol, how frequently they drink alcohol. So recently we've partnered with Dash Waters and Trip CBD and Karma Cola and Charity, Lemonade, all these lovely different brands who, you know, to be honest, I don't need to ask the question because they're shouting at me to want to be showcased in our business, and we want to work with them. And, you know, again, the Caravan coffee suppliers that we work, you know, they're as passionate about sustainability as we are, and so they help train the baristas. So again, it's this, you know, and I think, you know, to your point, I sell a big range of international beers and lagers as well. But thankfully, you know, the more times I get invited to talk to people, and people come to Mel knowing that, you know, she's passionate about sustainability, then I have conversations. I get to talk to senior people in global businesses, and I can hand on heart say that their attitude has changed. You know, they're frightened about being left behind if they don't up their game. So it's really, you know, it's good.
Oh, it's a good tip. If a brand approaches an operator and the brand isn't shouting about being sustainable, the alarm bell should ring.
But it, you know, again, it's also got to taste great. It's you know, it's not. People won't buy it, or they'll only buy it once if it's not a good drink or a good. You know, it all comes back to, and again, this is what Will and I were saying. I offer people a choice. So you can still buy Coke and Diet Coke in my business, but you can also have a choice to look and understand about Karma Cola and understand the good that they do and how they produce. And it's a totally different tasting drink. So again, you know, for me, it's never been about sort of preaching to people. It's about, you know, offering a range to those who've educated themselves and who are seeking it, but also, having faith in me as a business that I'm trying to make some decisions that, hopefully benefit guests in the long run.
Any more questions from the audience before we wrap up?
To add on to that point, sorry. No, I just wanted to say that I think what you said was perfect, and in terms of, I think businesses, what we quite often talk to businesses about being proud about when they're making a sustainable choice, celebrating that and celebrating the impact that if you're working with someone that does sustainable coffee, sustainable wine, kind of shouting about that. And actually, if you are offering that choice between a more standard option and a more sustainable option, make sure you're kind of nudging on your menu or with your staff that actually, put, whether that's a line saying, this Fairtrade wine is doing this, or this organic wine it has this impact, or even if it's just, the mark or the symbol. But yeah, just being really proud to sort of celebrate when you are doing a really good job to try and encourage people to go down that route.
Brilliant. We do have one more question just here. If you could... We'll squeeze it in. Yeah, no, pressure's on.
Hello, Dominic from the Natural Bar Company. So we are accredited for our sustainability as a mobile bar company. I think we're the only one in the UK. You talked earlier about food miles and green miles and products travelling. Do you think, given that the majority of studies point to the fact that the production is normally the largest footprint, and some instances up to 90%, that's over-egged slightly, and that the public are kind of need to be re-educated that just because it comes, from down the road, it's not always sustainable?
Ooh, that is a nice question.
I think it's a really, really good point, and it's actually something that we're looking into at the moment, because one of the big challenges that we always face is in particular around Fairtrade sugar, because you can get Fairtrade beet sugar from obviously in the UK down the road, or you can get cane sugar from Belize or a number of other countries, but actually the properties of cane sugar, the way it's produced is actually often more sustainable. So actually a lot of the Fairtrade mills that produce cane sugar are actually run on bagasse, which is a byproduct of the production. So, and they actually end up selling electricity back to the national grid. So it is something we're looking into a bit more as well, because being led by a study done in Switzerland where they actually looked at cane sugar versus Swiss beet sugar, and the total carbon footprint of cane sugar was 40% lower than the beet sugar, which was local. So it's definitely, for us, it's definitely it's a hot topic that we're kind of looking into. But a really interesting point, and I think it's something that we need to do more about, educating consumers more around.
Yeah, completely agree. Oh, and I'm falling. But just to echo that, it's Tim Lang who invented the term food miles. I know I've heard him sort of say that he slightly regrets inventing the term, because it depends on what commodity you're talking about, but around 75% of a average ingredient's total carbon footprint is located in before it even exits the farm gate. And the challenge we have, though, is that we're not quite at the stage in agriculture where we have the tools to know, is this wheat field producing X amount of carbon footprint versus this wheat field over there. It's coming, and it's really exciting, and hopefully it will only be a matter of time that we have that level of transparency. But going back to kind of what we're saying, we always say source local and seasonal if you can, but as soon as you can't sort of visit that farm and see where those supply chains are, certifications like Fairtrade just provides some kind of reassurance, and there are certain environmental standards that are built into, I know Fairtrade has a kind of wrapper being socially responsible, but there's environmental standards built into how Fairtrade works that also, looks at those kind of agricultural production methods. So I agree, it's overshot, but there's also value, which I won't go into sourcing locally and seasonally, but, we just have to be aware of the whole picture as much as possible.
Thank you. And for the time being, I would obviously just say, wherever you source it from, there's reasons for sourcing wherever you source from. Just don't waste it. At the moment, 10% of greenhouse gas emissions in the total world, which is 4% more than the aviation industry, comes from food waste. So the biggest thing we can do right now is just stop wasting stuff. That will automatically improve the efficiency along the supply chain. Yeah, ideally.
Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for coming and listening to us today. Thank you so much to everyone on the panel. Enjoy the rest of the day at Imbibe Live. As I said, if you missed anything, this is being recorded. It'll be on the Imbibe Live website after the show. Thanks very much.